New York had developed a love for the breakbeats, but in California, dancers reacted to the sound of the bass.
Ladies and gentlemen, those voices right there, icons in their own right. Living legends walking, Tracy.
Oh, yeah.
You spoke of one of them. Can you do the honors, please?
Oh, absolutely. We have someone who was a part of my college course, okay? He is a historian, and we don't say that with any type of hyperbole. A real historian, someone who has chronicled hip-hop, this culture, the music, the people for so many different years. I was introduced to him back in 2005 when this very book that we were celebrating first dropped. Can't Stop, Won't Stop, a history of the hip-hop generation. I'm speaking about none other than the iconic Jeff Chang.
Jeff Chang. Say his name.
Oh
Yup.
my goodness.
So important, bro.
So important.
Wow.
I'm staring at my copy right now. I got it with me. I never sold that bad boy.
Oh, that's
Can't stop.
man. That's definitely plus. Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
And joining him, as I said, is one of the first people to ever interview me. In fact, I think he was the first person to ever interview me and King Tech together, formerly of the TDK crew, the Total Death crew, and the Avengers. Before he picked up the pen just to write down history. He was also an MC. In fact, back in the day, you could catch him spitting the same verse for about 10 years straight. He had one verse, a Hot 16 that he always spit. Like it was the first time he ever spit it. Internationally,
Today.
yeah, might spit it today. Internationally known journalist, professor, historian, talk show man of the people, activist. We've done community work together, community activism. He's, I often say, my mentor. I've always been able to call him, and he'll pick up the phone on any day. And even the last time we talked, we shared some really personal stories about the legendary Shock G. And it was therapeutic, Davey D, to sit and talk with you as long as we did about Shock's impact on the Bay Area and just the world of music abroad. We got the one and only Davey D Cook, ladies and gentlemen, with us. Listen, citizens, so listen, before we get started, I know this word, this phrase, this term hip-hop is applied to almost everybody's career, everybody's platform, everybody's vernacular. We say the word so much, but I don't think we actually talk about the culture. We say hip-hop more than we say anything about the culture and its history, and it's very important that we record and document our own history, where we tell our own stories, and it has to be accurate. It has to be exact. And there's a few people out there that, it's a lot of us that are still here that helped write this and architect this history. We talk about Kool Herc. I literally was with Kool Herc. What's today? Thursday.
Today's Thursday.
Yeah, Monday, I joined Kool Herc for 3 hours in a juice bar up in the Bronx on White Plains Road off of Gun Hill Road, and we swapped stories for at least 3 hours as we talked about the T Connection and all these different clubs that he started at and rocked at. He's here. He's a living legend. We have to put the spotlight. We have to acknowledge these people, our forefathers and mothers that helped lay the foundation. So a lot of people that tune into this station, you love hip-hop. You love the culture. If you love the culture, I want you to call up right now, 888-742-3345. There would be no Shade 45. There would be no Eminem. If it wasn't for this culture. There would be no Hip Hop Nation. We have a channel called Hip Hop Nation. If it wasn't for this culture, these mantras, these slogans that these terrestrial radio stations use, the home of hip hop, the house that hip hop built, all of these hip hop. But we don't really dig deep into the culture. Hip hop to most people is what's charting on Spotify or Pandora. That's not all that this culture encompasses, and these guys have done an excellent job at documenting our history, especially with this new edition of Can't Stop, Won't Stop, a hip-hop history young adult edition. So I'm going to open up the phone lines. Any question, anything you're curious about, I want y'all to try to stump these dudes, Jeff Chang and Davey D. Call us up. Like,
I
if you
love
really
it.
about this, who's tuned in right now? If you really about this culture, 888-742-3345. We're going to have a culture dive. So if you're really
Ooh.
about it, talk to us. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Clearly.
I realized we were going to be like doing a pop quiz type of thing today. I thought we were just going to hang out and catch up and all that, but now I'm a little nervous.
Nah, you'll be all right. You wrote it. Okay, so now we're on the young adult edition. Jeff Chang, what is the difference?
We had to update it for a new generation. So, you know, as Tracy knows, the last book kind of ended in 2000, and a lot has happened since 2000. So we had to bring it all the way up to date, right through last year, the pandemic, the uprisings, you know, after George Floyd, all of that, we had to kind of include that. So it's about 60, 70% brand new stuff because there's a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to gather the information, and then how did you decipher what was book worthy and what would you not? What would you omit from it?
I'm going to kick that to Dave, actually.
Okay, Davey D.
I think the main thing was that we wanted to continue with the main themes of the first book, which was it looked at the emergence of hip hop from a political, social justice lens. Dates and times and names, those are almost interchangeable if you don't have a political context in which things come about. And so what we looked at was what was kind of, what was the backdrop over the last 20 years. And what we found was there was still police brutality. There was still income inequality. There was still racism. There was still sexism. There was still all these challenges that young people were faced with, and also people in our own generation. And then we started to look at the moves that people were making to combat that. So we looked at the political hip hop convention in 2004, 2006, and 2008. We looked at Rosa Clemente running for, vice president with Cynthia McKinney. We looked at the Oscar Grant movement. We looked at Ferguson. But we also juxtaposed that with the cultural expression that hip hop was, demonstrating to the world as these challenges came in the forefront. And so that's how we kind of situated things to make sure that people had an understanding that our expressions were a continuum, that they were responses a lot of times to the challenges that we were facing, and that there were people that were crafting their own solutions, that nobody was ever sitting back and waiting for the cavalry to come. Hip-hop was the cavalry. And, and it continues on. We took it all the way up to the last election, George Floyd, the pandemic, and we showed how hip-hop stepped out and blazed the path for millions of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how we made. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's powerful. I'm glad that you guys are sharing all of this, and we have you, especially for Hip Hop Appreciation Week. The both of you guys spoke on, and Jeff, you kicked this off when you were talking about framing this history around the political aspect of it. And it's so interesting because I'm just remembering now, I want to say it was the New York Times, I believe, but one publication used that as their main source of criticism against the first book, and thought that because it had this revolutionary aspect that was brought to it that is very important, clearly, to all of us, it took away from a focus on the music. What did you feel about that critique?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up because, it was one of those things that used to really get me angry about it all. But, the book is still here all these years later because, time has shown, 25 million people in the streets have shown that all of this stuff is interrelated. And I think that at that time it was just sort of the equivalent of, shut up and dribble. You know what I mean? Like, just stay in your lane. Just talk about how this makes us happy.
Right.
And that kind of thing. And the thing about it is we've always, you, me, all of us here, we've all kind of taken hip hop as, as not just the soundtrack of our lives, not just the kind of stuff that we get up to on the weekend, but as telling the truth and as something that's carried the stories that don't get told in the media all the time, up to the forefront. And then, we have moments like we're in now where it's clear, the artists, the people in the street, the folks who are writing history have a lot of knowledge to share that most of the world doesn't know about, and that are the keys for us to be able to survive as a community, as a society. So we took it very seriously, and I think, time has kind of borne it out. It stood the test of time.
Right. That makes sense.
That makes sense. I want to ask you about hip hop on a global basis. I recall years ago, Davey, we used to have conversations, and we used to kind of context the culture into tribes almost. You got the Southwest tribe, in terms of the music, at least. You got the South tribe of the Rap-A-Lot records. You got the West Coast tribe of the Ruthless records, or even the 75 Girls records or Busted records, and the country was kind of, divided into tribes, into regional tribes. When we start seeing hip hop grow on a global basis, I recall having a conversation. I was in 2006 in Paris, and I got into an argument with folks from Paris, B-boys from Paris, about where it all began. And for some reason, those kids started in Paris. Right, and so we had this long conversation, man, and it almost got physical. Like, these kids wanted to fight me over it, right? Dead ass serious. And I was like, damn, I'm in Paris I was with MTV doing a piece about Parisian hip hop, and it took me I said, who's the oldest B-boy in this circle? And the oldest one came up, and I said, hey man, how long you been dancing? He told me how long he was dancing. It was like from the 90s. I said, who did you learn from? And he said, I saw a video clip of Prince Ken Swift from Original Rocksteady Crew, and that's where I learned. But and then it kind of, the kids around kind of it kind of took the air out of them. But I found it fascinating how committed they were to believing that hip hop started then, right there in Paris. When did it start growing? Like, how did it grow from the United States to Europe to France? Who was traveling? Who were the first nomads that took it to all these places and planted these seeds?
Well, I think that's a layered question, because it's not an either or, it's both and. What I mean is that, sure, you had Rocksteady, you had that first tour with people like Bambaataa and others that were going around, and they were very intentional about showing people what they were doing. The reason why you could go to different places and they could feel that this came from where they were at is that these expressions, the oral tradition of rapping, the dance movements that we do, the percussion, which showed up in the form of breakbeats, but drum cultures all around the world. Many people, when they saw these expressions, they looked at it and they said, oh, that reminds me of what so-and-so used to do. And so they were able to immediately lock in and add their own flavor. So let's kind of take it back to Oakland, where we're from, where you're from. The reaction to hip-hop when I first came out here wasn't necessarily people being enamored with New York. It was like, oh, yeah, these dances are cool, but we got our own dances here. And we can add some of this stuff to it. That rap stuff, that's like my uncle who used to do that Dolomite pimp talk. And the point that I'm getting at is that these expressions have been around in communities for a long time. Hip-hop was just the catalyst for a new generation. So I'm not surprised that if you were in Paris, people would see it that way, because I saw it when I was in Nigeria, people would see it that way. Or when I was in Nairobi, people would see it that way, because they could take it back and say these expressions are similar. With that being said, there was a thing called hip-hop that comes out of the Bronx that had a form, that had an ethos to it that, definitely everybody was able to latch on. So there's a narrative, there's a foundation story that we can build on, the whole Kool Herc party, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at it from the standpoint of it being a continuum, that hip hop comes out of jazz, hip hop comes out of funk, hip hop comes out of reggae, and these things are born out of other things that predate it. Then you see hip hop as being a continuum, and so it's easy for people to do that. And I'll say one last thing, which is why we did the book the way we did. Unfortunately, in many parts of this country and many parts of the world, folks want to deny and erase blackness. So when black folks do something that's genius, or they tap into something that everybody loves, it's like, I love the culture, but I don't love you. So it's easy to erase us and say, yeah, we made this up, and we're just going to kind of knock you out. That's why they gave Jeff that criticism in the New York Times. It's a shut up and dribble. We don't need all this history. Just dance. No, there's a reason why we dance. There's a reason why we rap. And these things are, it's grounded in something much, much deeper, and is grounded in the ingenuity and the innovativeness that really speak to our, collective, spirit that people are afraid of. And so you have three things that are happening at the same time. And depending on where you go, some people are just like, I don't want to give you your props. I'm not going to give you your props. And hip hop is about, no, we're going to take it anyway. We're going to show and prove. You don't have to hear me, but you're going to feel me at the end of the day. And that's what it's all about. So in the end, cream will rise to the top, and hip hop has risen to the top. And this museum that we just celebrating is proof positive that we coming to the top and taking our seats.
There you go.
It is.
Can't stop, won't stop.
It is.
Come on, Jeff, Davey D, Cook. Come on, Jeff, Chang. They are here. Tracy, you got another question?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, especially as a woman in hip hop, and I think in general, so many of us as fans, it can get very complex because although I acknowledge, I salute, and I'm a part of the revolutionary standpoint, but then there comes in, the conversations around misogyny, conversations around ageism, conversations around like the glorification of materialism. And so looking at the history and seeing, just like if this was a chart and sometimes the lines go up and down and up and down, what do you think has been our relationship all these years up until this point when it comes to those 3 points I brought up with materialism, misogyny, and ageism? Have we been on the incline or the decline with those, in y'all opinion?
That's a big question. It's something that we get asked a lot, I think, in regards to how we're going to represent the history, right? And that's the thing about hip hop is that, as we can kind of all see, it's up and down. It's always in the gray zone, right? We're always kind of seeing the call and then the response. I think right now we're in this real high point. I feel like we're in the middle of a cultural renaissance. I feel like we're really, across the board in terms of Black cultural output right now. I mean, we're at a high point, and you see it because artists are reacting to what people are demanding, literally, in the streets, and in turn, they're influencing, the people in the streets to push it further, right? So I feel like when we're talking about artistry right now, the women are doing it. The women are really at the cutting edge of this stuff. They're leading the guys on all this, right? Megan Thee Stallion, Young M.A., Cardi B. Like, we could just go down the list, and Tierra Whack. Like, we could talk about how all of the amazing stuff that's coming out, most of the stuff are being done by women, and that's injected a point of view that pushes hip hop even further into critiquing misogyny. I think the materialism piece of it, right? I think that people are actually having that debate again now, and it's on a nuanced kind of level. It's on the kind of thing of like, I can show my stuff off, right? But I can also be about trying to fight inequality. I mean, this is literally Cardi B, right? She's sitting down with like Bernie Sanders talking about inequality, income inequality, the need for healthcare, all of these different types of issues. And at the same time, she's looking pretty fly as well. She's doing the thing. So, it can be nuanced, right? It can be complex. And with ageism, what I think is really interesting right now is, we're hip hop parents, me and Dave. That's part of where this thing about doing it for a young adult edition comes from. And I can have conversations with my kids now who are like, your daughter's age, Sway. And it's a different kind of thing than before, where it was like we took on hip hop to kind of scream at our parents almost, right? To kind of fight with our parents almost, right? So we can have our debates about like, well, so-and-so rapper versus, back in my day type of thing. But we're having a conversation now. And I think that's a really interesting thing that hip hop has kind of opened up for those of us who are hip hop parents.
Yeah.
I want to add something to that. I think it's important to understand that hip hop doesn't exist in a vacuum, and we're subjected to American culture, and American culture is rooted in materialism. American culture is rooted in misogyny. American culture is rooted in a lot of things that folks will often point to hip hop and say, "Why are you doing this?" Well, we do this because hip hop comes up in the age of lifestyles of the rich and famous. People were blinging when we started. So, of course, hip hop is going to have that reflected in its ethos. We came up at a time when women couldn't get, the same amount of money for the same job as a man, and where women were, seen and continue to be seen as objects to be played with and not taken seriously. So that would be reflected in the culture as well. But at the same time, and this is what we highlighted, this generation and these generations that exist now have always fought that, at different points in time. And so, we're going to have that type of materialism. But when we see it show up and it be manifested and it be marketed around the world, I'm going to not look at the artist as much as I'm going to look at the machinery behind it. Like, you got a 50-year-old man who will take a 16-year-old expression, and then it's still underdeveloped. Like, you're going to put millions of dollars and send it around the world and say this is authentic hip-hop culture or authentic black culture. And we're going to say, nah, there's an array of expressions that are around there. If you're looking at the woman that is shaking her butt, then let's talk about the woman who isn't. If you're looking at the guy who's talking about he wants to shoot, a bunch of people, let's talk about the person who isn't. And that's what we tried to do in this book, is to show that all these things exist in our community. All these things have value at different points in time, but we also show the intentionality that hip-hop is also exuded, where folks were meeting, folks were strategizing, folks were doing what Rocky and those guys are doing, building institutions, building a strategy, and trying to make a better way for all of us. And that, I think, is an important story that doesn't get highlighted, but we sure as hell highlighted it in this book.
There you go.
There
Very
you go,
thoughtfully
man.
shared. Thank you.
Absolutely. The book is called Can't Stop, Won't Stop, A Hip-Hop History, the Young Adult Edition, out now. And I don't do this often, but a lot of folks tune into this show love hip-hop. They say they do, and I take you for your word. This is a book you should own, citizens. This is a book you should definitely own this book, if these words are true.
Yes.
It's a beautiful read, and I would invite you all to read it. Can't Stop, Won't Stop, A Hip-Hop History, Young Adult Edition. We got Jeff Chang is with us, Davey D. I've known these dudes longer than a lot of y'all been alive.
Show off then. Show off then.
That is real.
That's a real shit right
All about the 22 years old. There you go.
There you go, man. Okay, we got Rick from the Bay is on the line. Rick, what up, baby?
Hi, Rick.
Yo, what's up, man? It's Rick Camacho.
Hey, Rick.
Shout out, Davey D. I want to know, hey, Davey, what's happening, man?
OG
Hey,
Rick.
I know, yes, sir. Is that iconic biker hat getting into the Hip Hop Hall of Fame?
For people who don't know, I was known to wear a biker hat even before Spike Lee had it and do the right thing. The biker hats are here, and actually the biker hats were in a museum. So I don't know if it's going to be in this one, but the biker hats are still here. I don't wear them anymore. My wife is like, nah, you're too old to be wearing biker hats, Go with a different type of
No.
So
She
So
threatened
days
to.
are over.
it's really called about to talk about Sacramento hip hop because back in the days we were all up in Sacramento, myself, Ebro, Triple, and we're doing my man Matthew Gilliam Productions is putting together a documentary on Sacramento hip hop in the '90s, and we used to bring Sac State, we used to bring everybody together, right? And we created, or my man Triple created the Informer magazine. We had Baldy Locks, like I said, Ebro, so many people out there, and we really put Sacramento on the map back in the '90s with our productions and promotions and all that stuff. And I just want to know, how can we get y'all part of that?
Well, let me just say this, and I'll toss it to Jeff. One of the things that we were very aware of in the book is that people knew the New York narrative, but now there are stories all around the world that go back 20, 30, and even 40 years in hip-hop. And we were very intentional in how we framed it to give people a pass the baton, so to speak. We want to hear the Sacramento story because that's important. The same way we need to hear the Oakland story, the Trenton, New Jersey story, the Philly story. We were just in Detroit. They had a whole thing with just Detroit's history. No book can capture it. But the larger part is that there's a reason why folks in Sacramento in the late 80s and the 90s did what they did. They may have been inspired by a movie or a concert, but people coming together en masse have a unique story that's important to tell. And you all should highlight that. And, the same way that here in Oakland, there's a unique story that predates, Kool Herc's party. That story needs to be told and is going to be told in San Francisco, all these places. And, again, is primarily black folks in marginalized communities, coming together, trying to make a way out of no way. And we got a story to tell in all these areas, and we're going to tell it. And the book is hopefully a tip to the hat for those stories to be told. So we're there to support it.
Rick, thanks for calling in, man. How you been?
Man, I've been good, Sway. I love y'all, man. I appreciate you. Been rocking since the early '90s.
Yes, brother.
And,
yeah, man. Thank you, Rick.
You're the voice. Hey, you're the voice of my DJ stuff. I got my iconic DJ Slicks echo of Sway voice on all my mixes at Real DJ Slicks.
Oh, shit, man. Go with it, man. Cool, man. Rock out, baby. Rock out. If you need some new ones, let me know. The voice still sound the same, man. I still got the same one, man. I sound like I did in junior high, damn it. Hey, Rick, you a citizen, all right?
I swear to morning.
Man, I was in kindergarten with this voice.
You stupid.
Hey, when we open up, and I would love to have y'all in studio and have these conversations. Jeff, where you at right now? Where are you located?
I'm still in the Bay. South Berkeley, North Oakland. Yeah.
Okay. Why he said Trip Dave, he had to say South Berkeley. He just couldn't just say Berkeley, right? He needed to.
Hey, you guys know it. You know the politics.
He had to say South Berkeley.
Nothing wrong with that.
Hey, man. South Berkeley, stand up. Okay, maybe we could do something at the Pandora studio soon, man. I'll talk to Davey about it, and we could put that building to work. We got a beautiful building over there in Oakland with Pandora. But, gentlemen, it's not enough words to be said about how proud I am of what you guys have been doing and continue to do, and who you are to this culture, and who you are as people, who you are as fathers, and who you are to me, King Tech, even our legacy. We don't tell our legacy. This is a sidebar. King Tech and I don't talk our story a whole lot, but it's people like you.
We need a book on you all, for real, though.
Yeah.
All the stuff you all have been able to do for this, man. You guys have been doing this for the culture for so many years, put so many people on. And, I think people know, but I think people really want to know the down and dirty and the underground of it all. So let us know.
Put the pressure on them.
No, we here.
Okay. Davey know a lot. Davey know too much. That's why I haven't talked to Davey about it. Davey knows way too much. But that's a conversation we can have.
On serious tip, though, I think, the legacy of you guys, the Wake Up Show, and just that strand of hip hop that you all really ushered in. If you all hadn't did what you did, the trajectory wouldn't be here. If you think about the platform that was on,
It's real.
and, I don't know if people know, but I'll say it, secretly, it was you and King Tech that was programming these major radio stations that other stations followed the lead. That's real talk.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of people didn't know. But that's major for you all to have been doing that and, and really directing, not just a station, but a whole culture to move in a particular direction and get acclimated to a type of sound and a type of expression that was counter to what, commercialism wanted. So that's major props. That deserves its own movie onto itself. So I'm going to give you flowers on that.
Put us on, put so many people on. Really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely, man. We
doing it.
Still having fun with it too, man. Still having fun with it. And we'll continue to do it. That's always been our mission, and we'll talk. I think we got to have that conversation. But gentlemen, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Can't Stop, Won't Stop, a hip-hop history, young adult edition. Jeff Chang and Davey D Cook.
Woo!
You guys, man, download the book or whatever. However you can get the book. You're welcome, Jeff. And we'll talk soon, brothers.
Book.
Okay, get the audio book. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, listen to them read. Okay? Gentlemen, thank you for calling in. Love you. And we'll talk soon, okay? All right, peace.
All right.